today I'm going to speak a little bit about the psychological impacts of families living with hyperinsulinism and the impacts on children, parents, and have a little think about siblings as well. So I suppose first of all, it's important to recognise, isn't it, that you don't live in a bubble, you don't live in a factory, you live with different systems around you. So when we talk about systems, we're thinking about relationships and relationships that you have with your family, with your friends, relationships that you have with medical teams as well, and how supported you find relationships and supporting you. We've also got things like cultural groups, neighbours, and then we've got our environment to really impact how the way that we cope psychologically. So we're thinking about childcare, accessibility, accessible buildings, being able to get around, and also kind of wider, political, environmental factors. So thinking about things like education, support at school, reasonable adjustments, housing, having suitable housing. So these are all factors and systems that affect how we cope psychologically with hyperinsulinism. So first of all, thinking about our children and our young people, they are first and foremost, they're children, aren't they? And they experience all the same difficulties that any other child would. But they are living with hyperinsulinism every day, and they're facing difficulties that other children don't face. So they're thinking about their bloods, they're thinking about nets, feeds. Parents are thinking about taking blood glucose readings. So there's a lot of different things that we have to face each and every day. And the challenges that we face psychologically can change over childhood, make them look different at different stages. Okay, and it's, we spend a lot of time thinking about the medical challenges that children and families face, but it's really, really important for us to think about the psychological challenges too. And our children are so resistant, resilient. They're so resilient, and they amaze us all the time. And not all children do struggle with these things. It's helpful for us to have a think of them. Okay, so I'll start by thinking about babies and toddlers. It's often the time where a child's diagnosed with hyperinsulinism. And it's things like a little baby spending a lot of time in hospital. That can be lovely for attachment, actually, and building attachment, being with like one or two caregivers. But it can actually be quite difficult when you're leaving hospital and you're taking a baby out to the big wide world, for all the sort of experiences that they've not been able to have in hospital. And then they grow to a toddler, and as we know, toddlers challenge us anyway. They test our boundaries, and they can become very picky eaters, which is all normal, all developmentally normal. But when you are managing hyperinsulinism and your little one doesn't want to eat, or they're saying, no, I don't want you to take my blood glucose reading, that's incredibly stressful for parents, incredibly stressful, and it's incredibly stressful for the little ones as well, because they're being asked to do things that they don't want to do. Then thinking about young children, so when we think about young children, think about children who maybe start in school, primary school age. You've got huge adjustments that they're going through. They're going into kind of a new setting. They're having to trust adults that they've maybe never met before, trying to make new friends and navigate relationships with friends that don't have hyperinsulinism. And then they might have lots of time off for hospital treatments, procedures, things that make them feel anxious. And they're starting to kind of have this increased awareness of their health and how they might be different to other people, to compare themselves a little bit more to this way. Just as they've adjusted to the new primary school, whoosh, off they go to high school, whole new environment, mental change, big adjustment to make, often given a lot more independence, which can be quite anxiety for women and children, also for parents as well. Sometimes we might see some challenges with adherence, so kind of older children perhaps not feeling like they want to do the blood sugars or not really wanting to take medication, wanting to fit in with the peers around. And if you've ever been at kind of a high school gate, you'll often see kind of a group of girls or a group of boys, and they've all got the same hairstyle, and they've all got the same bag, and they've all got the same shoes. So this kind of age is an age where children do want to try and fit in a little bit. And then we've got exam stress. We can come up with things like GCSEs. Sometimes we find that young people will find that their blood sugars might drop if they're starting to feel anxious. That can sometimes come up around exam time. If they're feeling stressed, they often notice a little bit of correlation with their blood sugars. And then we've got early adulthood, where children are really increasing their independence, maybe having new relationships, wanting to spend time away from home, and thinking about work, thinking about the future, or going off to university. So it's a whole new adjustment, and also transitioning as well into adult services, which can, when you've been used to children's services, can be quite an adjustment. So some of the common feelings that come up can be anxiety and worry, frustration, things like frustration at CGMs or finger pricks, feeling a loss of control, what they can do over their bodies, and feeling different to others, feeling quite uncertain. And then we sometimes see children who have quite specific fears, so it might be fears over things like blood tests or procedures. It could be even attending like clinic appointments. So there's lots of different emotions that can come up for young people. So I suppose some tips for parents, things that can help, is always explaining. So kind of like young people, they need information, and the information always needs to be pitched at their level as to how much they can take in and the age that they are. Really simple information, but honest, not trying to cover anything up. And it should be a clear description of what's going to happen and why it's going to happen, but most importantly, why it's going to help. Making things fun, making things as enjoyable as possible makes things so much easier for people to tolerate. So making up fun games, songs, stories, and particularly with young children, role play is a great way of them learning about their condition without becoming stressful or them feeling under the spotlight at all. Breaking things down into small steps. So we're thinking about a young person maybe wanting to take a bit more responsibility for doing their blood sugars, breaking that down into really small steps to help them build confidence. So maybe the first step is that they take the strip out of the pack. You know, if they're really anxious, you spend a few weeks and then once to take the strip out of the pack, and then you build upon on the steps as you go. Choice and control is huge. You know, children experiencing health conditions often feel like they have such a lack of choice and such a lack of control. So it's important where you can to give them choice. What food, you know, if they're younger, what plate do they want their food on? What cup do they want to drink from? Where would they like to sit to have their meds? Picking our battles, you know, sometimes, you know, requests from children like singing, but if it's actually going to make them feel like they've got more choice and more control where you can, try to give them. And then lastly, we've got reward and praise. It's so important, praising them for the things that you want to see more of, and trying to kind of pay less attention to behaviours that you don't want to, you prefer to see less of. So lots of praise, rewarding them for doing tricky things like clinic appointments or class, things like that. And also just celebrating their success to help them build a positive self-image. Some things kind of from the therapy room that might help is something called a safe and calm place. So this is where, and this is good for adults as well actually, but this is where you can sit down with your child when they are, you know, they're feeling quite calm on a normal day. And you get them to think about a place or somewhere they've been where they're feeling really calm and they've got really nice memories of it. And you get them to think about what they could see, what could they touch, what can they smell, do, taste. And get them to draw a picture of it, or if they can't draw, you try and help them draw a picture of that too. And then this is a place that you can use if they're in school and they feel quite stressed. Encourage them to try and take a minute to think about this visualization that they've created. Some families will get it printed onto like water bottles or phone cases, or little key rings that you can put on bags to help as a visual prompt for the young person. Breathing exercises, which I'm sure you've all heard about. In my experience, the more simple, better. So we've got triangle, 3 sides, breathe in for 3, hold for 3, breathe out for 3 seconds. And then got this one on the left, which is really popular with primary school age children, which is just about breathing in and out, up and down each finger. Often find little ones will do that under the table in school if they're feeling a little bit worried about something. It's quite an easy one to remember. Okay, and lastly, if you find that your child's a worrier, or if actually you're not quite sure that they're worrying and you think that they might be bottling things up, a worry box is a really effective way of helping them to communicate those worries. So this could be getting an old shoebox that you've got, or it could be a box from the works or Hobbycraft, get them invested in the box, get them to decorate it. And the aim is that every day you will have a set time aside, and it'll be the same time every day, so maybe after tea before bed, where you can have some special one-to-one time to think about any worries that we've got, and they can post those worries in the box throughout the day. Or if they're not great at writing, they could put a little bead or a little token in the box just to indicate that they've got something on their mind. And then they know that they've got that time then to discuss it with you. And even if they haven't got any worries, they know that you're going to be checking in on just how they feel. So they all seem quite simple things, but they do make a big difference. Okay, so moving on to parents and carers. So there's in addition to all the issues that kind of being a parent naturally brings, a health condition like hyperinsulinism can present some additional psychological challenges. You know, family roles massively have to change and adapt. Often you're kind of living in fear of something bad happening, which is a really heavy weight to carry. Living with uncertainty, and often living with really difficult memories of things that have happened in the past. I think what's quite unique about hyperinsulinism is that when your child's diagnosed with it, there's no prior warning. There's no prior warning in pregnancy. It's something that can come as quite a shock and quite out of the blue. And I just wanted to play a video now, which is an Alder Hey family, a very different child with a different health condition, but I feel they explain much better than I can how it feels to go through a similar experience.
Well, I found out we had Thomas. Somebody gave us a poem, and it's called Welcome to Holland.
I'm often asked to describe the experience of raising a child with a disability, to try to help people who have not shared that unique experience to understand it. It's like this. When you're going to have a baby, it's like planning a fabulous vacation trip to Italy. After months of eager anticipation, the day finally arrives, you pack bags and off you go. So plans made to the playing lands.
The playing lands, the stewardess comes in and says, "Welcome to Holland." Holland, you say? What do you mean Holland? I signed up for Italy. I'm supposed to be in Italy. All my life I've dreamed of going to Italy. But then there's been a change in the flight plan. They've landed in Holland and they must stay. The important thing is, they haven't taken you to a horrible, disgusting, filthy place. It's just a different place. So now you must go out and buy new guidebooks, and you must learn a whole new language, and you will meet a whole new group of people who you've never met before. But after you've been there for a while, you catch your breath, you look round, and you begin to notice that Holland has windmills, Holland has tulips, Holland has Rembrandts. But everyone you know is busy coming and going from Italy, and they will brag it about what a wonderful time they had there. But if you spend your life mourning the fact that you didn't get to Italy, you may never be free to enjoy very special and lovely, very lovely things about Holland. That's it.
Yeah, I feel like that poem kind of sums up the emotion that can happen around the time of diagnosis and afterwards too. A common feeling that can come up for families is a feeling of grief, which is something that can sometimes come as quite a surprise for families. When we think about, grief happens when we go through something that's really difficult and really unexpected. And we go through these stages here, so it can encompass feelings like shock, anger, feeling quite fearful, panic, guilt, low mood. But then as we kind of like come up the curve, we can think about kind of coping and building new relationships and finding new strengths and having hope. And at the top there's going to like helping others, which is a lot of what the charity is about today. But actually what a lot of parents tell us is, although this is a loveliness curve, this is often the way that it looks in reality, and we experience these feelings about all the time. And not just for, you know, a couple of months or years after diagnosis. You know, these feelings can carry on throughout life. They might feel a lot smaller, but we can think about this process for a long, long time. Another common theme that we see in psychology with parents is anxiety. It's a really normal, common feeling to have when you're parenting a child with a health condition. And anxiety can often link to trauma, and trauma, unfortunately, is often experienced by most of our parents and families. It might be at the time when your child was first diagnosed, or them falling particularly unwell, and being in ICU. There's lots of different things that can happen that are classed as trauma that we might not stereotypically think about. And we like to forget about those memories, don't we? They're not nice to think about. Why would you want to sit and think about them all day? But they can help maintain how we feel anxious moving forward. So we've got this kind of analogy of like a linen cupboard, and I'm sure we've all got like me, got a messy linen cupboard or a messy drawer at home. And trauma is like when we just shove all those past memories in a cupboard and try and put the door, you know, close the door and not think about it and hope it doesn't spill out. But actually every day you're reminded, you know, through doing blood glucose checks, you know, symptom checking and things like that. And sometimes the door just bursts open and all these, you know, pieces of laundry, our emotions can come hurling out. So it can be helpful if you are struggling with some of these things to access some kind of trauma therapy. And within that, what we do is take all those items of clothing out of the cupboard, sit and look at them and fold them all nicely, put them back in so that things can feel a little bit more manageable. But again, if you are experiencing any of these feelings, it's only expected and normal for you to feel that way. Okay, and lastly, just thinking about living with uncertainty, which is really hard to do, and it's something that the parents and families are doing every single day. But why is it so hard? Like, why is it so tricky to live with this uncertainty, even after years and years, you know, maybe of experience? But it's because our brains just aren't wired in that way. Our brains like predictability. Our brains like to know what's going to happen, and it's our brain's job to keep us safe. So when you're living with hyperinsulinism, which is not a predictable condition to live with, like no 2 days are the same, that's why it's so hard to live with. So our brains are constantly looking out for danger, like tigers in this image. It's like our brain is constantly waiting for an alarm. Okay, so what can help parents? I suppose, like, most importantly, it's trying to show yourself some kind of self-compassion and kindness, and acknowledge that if you're struggling, it's because it is hard. You're managing a lot, so you can remember to be kind to yourself. Remember that your feelings are normal, and try, if you can, and it's really hard, but try to take some time for yourself. Try and have a little think about the other parts of you, the other parts of your identity. What, other than being a mum or a dad or a grandparent or a carer, what other things do you like doing? And is there any time you can spend in your day, even if it's just 15 minutes, trying to focus on those? Meet with other people with similar experiences. Today is a great example. Trying to be in the present and trying to reach out to trusted people or other parents or other professionals. And it is all right to ask for help. Always ask your medical teams if you are struggling, and hopefully they can point you in the right direction as some support. That goes for the children as well. Okay, and I just want to finish by thinking about our siblings, which we often don't think about as much, but it's important for us to think about the impact on them too. So most siblings, most brothers and sisters, we have a brother and sister with physical health condition, they cope and they react in a really positive way, with love, with care and support towards their, their brothers and sisters. But there are some kind of really common and normal challenges, normal psychological challenges that siblings might experience. So sometimes it might be worrying about their sibling becoming well. And what does that mean? Does that mean mum or dad's going to be away from home? Fear of the unknown, only partly understanding the situation. So you might be trying to shield them a little bit, but then they might try and fill in the gaps, and the gaps that they fill in might be with the wrong information sometimes. Children's imaginations can be really big and surprising. They might want to help, they might want to feel involved and to be able to do something but not really be sure how. Not really sure how to do that. They might also bottle up feelings to avoid worrying their parents. Sometimes might feel overprotective of siblings too, worry about them. So what can help with siblings? So similar things as to what can help you give with a child's love, with hyperinsulinism. So encourage them to talk about the feelings. The main thing is listening, validating and let them know that the feelings are really valid. Giving them that one-to-one special time, if you can, even if it's just 10 minutes a day, where you just spending that time with them. Have kind of open, age-appropriate discussions, give them lots of opportunity to ask questions. Being in the car is a brilliant way of having these difficult discussions when they're not looking at you. We often find that children will open up a lot more, or if you're on a walk, rather than kind of sitting down formally and trying to chat with them. Trying to encourage them to see what similarities they have with their siblings, so rather than the differences, trying to encourage them to think about how they're similar. And then also find some activities you can enjoy together, all together, but also what can you do separately, what special time can you offer separately to siblings. So that's all from me. Thank you for listening. I hope it's been helpful. If anyone has any questions or would like to have a chat with me, kind of on their own, just catch me. I'll be around, and I'll be able to take questions. Yeah.